Hey there everybody, AJ back for the Mighty Glue Stick channel. Time for a Halloween special. Today I'm bringing you an entirely new content for your game. On this special night I have brewed for you a noxious beast and woven it into the lore, so you can spring something entirely nefarious and what's more, very freaky on your players. They said they'd seen it all. They said they knew the monster manual like the backs of their hands. They said, do your worst, bring it on. Nothing can spook us. That is, of course, before they met the Sarkapha. The Mind Flayers have an arsenal of bioengineered horrors that few can even imagine. The Sarkapha is one of their most ingenious, useful, and lethal varieties of mutant progeny. Originating on the world of Toril in the ancient city of Rorindal, founded sometime in minus 11,000 DR, the city of Law Takers, located on the lower dark of the Darklands, lies 26 miles beneath the Shining Plains, 90 miles northeast of Ormath and 90 miles northeast of Lishale. This city is where the 6,000 strong population of Mind Flayers and the much larger population of Ceramorphs and Thrall races work towards the domination of all life. With such a large population, raiding for fresh brains was problematic, until a form of virus that was infecting the larval tadpoles of one of the brain pools was studied, subjected to many experiments, and finally mutated into what its final form became. Sending a raiding party to the surface world, many were infected with the first expeditionary batch of Sarkapha, and within a mere month, fresh brains were literally walking from the surface world directly into the farm pens of the Mind Flayers. The shrieks and wails of the victims was a welcome cacophony to the squid-headed horrors. Since then, the Sarkapha have been in loyal service to the Illithid race, but some work as mercenary creatures for other evil Underdark races, at least for a while, but always working for the long-term benefit of the Illithid species, never against it. Sarkapha is a disease like no other, a parasitic infection that numbs the skin and forms a telltale dark rash on the forehead. At first, treatment can and must be sought immediately. A remove curse spell will banish it from the body in a fishy sweat oozing from every pore. Otherwise, it is fought like any other serious disease. 24 hours after coming into contact with any infected creature or substance, the victim makes a difficulty class 15 constitution saving throw or becomes infected, waking from their next long rest with a numb sensation spreading across random areas of their skin. The save difficulty class is 18 in attempting to fight off the disease and stop it spreading. Each successful saving throw will see the DC for their next roll lowered by 1d4. Any failed roll will see the numbness get much worse, inflicting a -1 penalty to actions that rely on any sense of touch. Also, the dark rash on the forehead becomes prominent and starts to form painful-looking boils. If the next saving throw is failed for a third time, the skin becomes completely numb and starts to loosen, seeming to be detached from the flesh beneath it. The boils rupture and reveal blood-red blisters with hard lumps growing inside them. Another failed saving throw, the victim gains 1 level of exhaustion permanently, unless somehow restored later on. The final stage of the disease transformation will see the skin become an independent entity from the body. The blisters burst open to reveal black insectoid eyes that can close or open, concealing themselves with rudimentary eyelid flaps. And the voice of the newly born Sarkapha speaks into the mind of its host. The first conversation always culminates in the Sarkapha revealing the power it has over its host. It splits open and peels away from the host, leaving them in screaming agony as their skin literally flays itself off their raw flesh. The Sarkapha can live independent, living apart from the host for a short time, no more than 6 hours, as if it needs to feed on oxygen-rich blood to survive and nourish itself. The host can live without skin for no more than 3 hours before they die from shock and trauma. Plus, they will be riddled with infestation, and so on. One short experience of what could happen to them is more than enough to turn a host into a docile slave for the Sarkapha, who work on them constantly, mentally, communicating every aspect of the host and dominating their life, leaving them completely under the Sarkapha's control. Eating, sleeping, every spoken word and deed will either be rewarded or punished. The horror of this situation is brutal of the psyche of the infected. They're an imprisoned host. Even if they somehow manage to give a message to someone else and get restored via magical intervention, they will experience the shock of this brutal violation for the rest of their lives. Only time can temper the memory. Remember, physically they are free to, they can run, they can scream, they can shout, they can call out messages, but the Sarkapha at any time can crawl off them and leave them in shrieking agony. The objective of the Sarkapha is simple: to have the host make the journey to the nearest Mind Flayer enclave and report for subjugation. The Sarkapha can exist after the host body is dead, and they are not harmed when the Mind Flayer cracks open the victim's skull and chews out the soft brain meat directly from their head. The Sarkapha will slither into a brain pool for a short while, or wrap itself around a slightly smaller humanoid, feeding on the blood supply and at the same time creating the perfect disguise, wrapping around an enthralled Grimlock and walking back up to the surface, infiltrating the very place where it took its first victim. The Sarkapha can release shreds of its tissue into a well, smear its fishy pus across a meal, or merely shake hands, pat a shoulder, or kiss a loved one of the dead person whose skin is now wrapped around an entirely different creature. Sarkapha have very few defences of their own. They're merely riding a host body, which suffers a level of exhaustion at all times, so they're not very hard to kill, and burning them eliminates any threat of the infection to those who know what they're dealing with. But oh, my friends, what horrific damage they can wreak on an unsuspecting humanoid cattle of the surface world, walking the city streets and the quiet country lanes. Have a care when you open a door to the people you know. Look not at their friendly face. Look into the eyes, the terrified, desperate eyes. Happy Halloween, everybody!